Hi, Joel Rollins here for Rave Radio, and I'm sitting here with Steve Thorburn. Steve is a long time associate, former instructor and writer for the Institute. As a matter of fact, one of the things that's been really interesting to me is at the same time I was writing the manuals on rental and staging and teaching a class, Steve did most of the seminal work on design currently.
Correct.
Two guys with vastly different specialties. And Steve, thanks so much for being with us.
My pleasure. It's great to be here.
What have you seen so far? Anything? I know you were teaching yesterday.
No, I was taking class yesterday.
Oh, really?
I took a class.
Really?
Yeah.
Did they teach you your own material?
No, it was on Dante. It was actually very nice and very
Oh,
informative.
good. Good.
And no, if you remember, 2 years ago, I gave up teaching.
Yeah.
After 20 years.
Yeah, as did I.
And I was walking over here yesterday and saw the sign of 16 and got thinking, this is the 30th year.
Yeah.
30th InfoComm I've been to. So.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons that I quit teaching. Steve and I have had a couple of talks about this. Is that now with the need to have things approved, we can no longer do what we've always done, which is update our courses all the time.
Yeah. Having the most current information. And
right.
If you can't tell someone that a DisplayPort connector is probably what they're going to be connecting to, and it hasn't been approved yet, it's a little tough to do AV design.
You probably have a better view than anyone I know of what's happening in the design and installation world. What's the hot things right now?
Making things more transparent. It really is going back to Fred Dixon's comment of making AV a ghost. And how can we get people to interact with it simply and make it part of everyone's everyday's life? And that's really been the big challenge. Doing what we've been trying to do, and with new displays, new microphones, new camera tracking systems, BYOD, how do we get all of that to work well?
Right.
The challenge has been we're finally at a point in the industry where what we have at home is pushing what we had at work. And previously what we had at work
pushed what we had at home.
Yeah.
Right.
So how do we get that tape recorder that we've got at the office back at home so we could watch the kids' videos? So to answer your other question about what have I seen that's great, I've only made it this far in the hall.
Okay.
So for those of you that don't know, we're at the split in the C Hall, and it's probably 20% of the hall so far that I've covered.
Right.
Plus we've got all the North Hall. So yeah, there's a lot more to see. And,
well, I'm glad you stopped by here.
Yeah.
So in terms of technologies, what are you going to be looking at while you're here?
Really for our clients right now, we're looking at the fine pitch LEDs.
Okay.
And what price point are they at, and are we going to be able to fly them for some of our clients? We've got a couple of large auditoriums where we want to be able to fly the display in and out, and that's a challenge. Can we get it down to a 2 millimeter pitch, and can they afford that versus the 4 and 6 that we were looking at 6 months ago? So that's one of the things we're really focusing on. I'm really liking a lot of the digital signage stuff we saw at Samsung. They're really coming out with their IP65 weatherproof displays so we can deal with outdoor environments and those types of things. So the industry is really maturing for the integrators. From a consultant point of view, manufacturers are now solving the problems that we were hired to solve. So we're getting things that are off the shelf now.
So talk to me about that. I mean, you have a perspective on this, which, you came into the design industry with a whole lot of other education before you started in AV design. Mm-hmm. I've followed your company, and Thorburn Associates has expanded, and you've hired new. If you were entering the design field now, what would you be looking for? I mean, it seems to me, and not coming from the position of being a design consultant, how has that process changed?
The process is changed in the way we're delivering the middle. The switching, the routing, the amplification, that's what's changed. From a ergonomics point of view, a usability point of view, all of that, none of that's changed. So as a consultant, we're always going to have a job because we have to help the architects, the end users, understand how they're going to be using the space and how that technology is going to be used. They really don't care if it's an analog signal, if it's a digital signal, if it's twisted pair, if it's fiber optic. They just want it to work.
Right.
And that goes back to that whole integration, and that's really the value add that we have as consultants. Would we be strictly a consulting firm again if we were starting today? I'm not sure. And
Really?
how much of an IT-centric would it be? Would we be an IT firm that's doing AV? Would be an AV firm doing IT? My career started out as an acoustical consultant.
Right.
I'd done a lot of AV and theater in college and second degree in that. And that was my value add for the firm, was to help develop the AV. So when we started the firm, we were trying to really establish ourselves as 50% billable as acoustics, 50% AV. So we had that branch. The other firms in the area were 25, 75. One was acoustics, one was AV. That is how we got started, and we're still trying to keep our billings about that way from a balance point of view. But how would we do it today? I think there would be an integration component, and we've really been looking at designer-led design build. It's something that's been around with the American Institute of Architects I started looking at it 20 years ago, and we never really acted on it. Part of that was having to get a contractor's license, then I'd be in conflict with other things. And now it's starting to come back as far as project delivery of buildings. So that's really what we're trying to look at, and thinking about expanding into that to open up the bag of tricks.
That would be fascinating. I mean, that's the same question that we have in the staging market all the time, which is, should you be a staging and production company? Mm-hmm. Right? I mean, we had two philosophies. One is you produce an integrated show, right? All the way from designing the artwork and the materials and the video all the way through to presenting the show, and that makes you, a one-stop shop, the old master builder concept,
exactly.
Right? And so very much talking about the same thing.
And then for us is who would we team with, and it's part of that is finding the right integration firm to be able to team with, and they would maintain the contracting licenses, so we wouldn't have to.
Right.
But it would still be, do we become an owner's rep then, or is a construction manager at risk? So those are the things that
it would really enhance the consultant's control of the final project.
It would.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing that we really miss, is that last 10% on site.
Right.
And we're really at the mercy of the installation crew on site.
Uh-huh.
Too often I've heard, well, I wouldn't have done it that way, from the folks on site. And they're saying that in front of the owner while I'm standing there. It's like, okay, you're hanging me out to dry, guys. Why are you
yeah, well,
running me over
you
with
can
a bus?
hang us out to dry, too.
Yeah.
In that you often do the final inspections.
Yes. And I remind them of that.
So you talk to me about the structure of Thorburn Associates.
Well, Thorburn Associates is a woman-owned firm. Started with my wife 24 years ago.
Right.
And Lisa's very much the marketing and management side. She's got a technical background, does a lot of our initial needs programming documents, and takes care of that side of things. And I'm essentially classified as the director of engineering.
Okay.
So from an acoustics, AV, lighting, IT, it all flows up to me. And then we've got a bunch of talented people that are
I was going to say, I see a bunch of other people wearing Thorburn Associates shirts.
Yeah.
What do they do?
They're the ones doing the heavy lifting.
Oh, okay. That's a great idea.
So for me, I get to come in and really become the visionary,
Right.
for a lot of the stuff, and then pass it on to the team to execute it. And then in the best world, I come back for that checkout and make sure the client's happy, and make a few phone calls in between to make sure everything's going well. That's the role I'm trying to play right now.
Okay, let me ask you a personal question. What are your favorite kind of project?
Favorite kind of project is something that hasn't been done before, something that's out of the box, something with a client that really gets it. The fact that it's going to have a wow factor, whether it's a showroom for a customer briefing center. It's about telling that story. It's the experience. Those are the ones that are fun, and those are the ones I don't pass on.
Right, absolutely. I mean, motivation in choosing a project can often be, boy, I really want this one.
Yep.
This one will be great. But it's interesting that you talk about a customer who's savvy. With your kind of background, you're not afraid of that. I hear a lot of people say that an educated customer is basically a pain.
Yes, but you can have that conversation with the educated customer and say, because of X, Y, and Z, we want to do this. And 9 times out of 10, they'll agree.
Right.
And that 10th time, they'll say no because. And as soon as you get that additional feedback, you can start to see what their business model is. So in those projects, I mean, I don't want to say we become a business consultant, but as a business owner, we try to put ourselves in their place so we can understand their business process and how can we use the technology to help people communicate better to meet their business needs.
Right. I mean, that's interesting that you have that kind of business focus, because one of the things I've discovered in moving from the West Coast to the East Coast is that we use often the same set of components, but they're used very differently. Right. I mean, the business emphasis in Silicon Valley, it was, let's do something crazy. Right.
And it was, let's do something crazy, but we've only got a lease for 3 years.
Right.
And on the East Coast, we've got all these historically, we've got the established firms that we're putting something in for 10, 15, 20 years.
Right.
And I mean, that's really you think of the Wild Wild West and the Wall Street area, and that's the two places we get to play in.
And I went from having a Silicon Valley crowd to having a Wall Street crowd, right? Where in Silicon Valley I could sell anything based on, this is incredibly risky show and no one's ever tried this before. Oh, we got to do that,
exactly.
Right? My current clients have very similar budgets, but it's, you need to show us 10 other firms who have done this exactly this way, the same way recently, and we need to talk to them, right? Because there's no risk taken by a bank that way.
No.
So, again, business influences not the hardware, but the way they use it. And, from your point of view, designing control systems and things like that, you have to really accommodate that, don't you?
We have to think about it and who's going to be using it. Is it the young, savvy tech guy, gal that's in Silicon Valley or wherever, or is it going to be the CEO that's going to have his secretary or assistant use the control system?
Okay. So, anyway, I take it you're going to be prowling around the show.
I'm going to be prowling, yes.
Okay. And let me ask you one more question about product, because here's one. We're talking about, the disappearance of AV, the need to make it transparent, or a ghost, as Fred said. One of the things that my background as a stager looks at is we're currently seeing high product integration, right? You're seeing control system, audio amplifier, DSP, everything in one box.
Yep.
This is something in staging we resist, right? Because if one product goes down, the amplifier goes down, I can quickly replace it.
Yep.
If a control system goes down, I have the fortune of having 15 union crew handy to say, okay, we're going to control all that manually.
Yep.
Right? Are the same dangers in an install, or is there a place for those things?
I think the integrated boxes that we're seeing, when they're done right by reputable companies that are not giving us a $2 wall wart for the power supply,
Right, yeah.
which is going to be the point of failure, there's a place for that. And it helps with the adjustment of the system that many of the integrators never do anyhow. So I've got a single box. It's going to come quasi pre-programmed from the factory, so we know it's going to work. And the chances of that box failing during the CEO's presentation, that's only going to be given once as you're dealing with staging and rental. I mean, that's a show. You don't get a second chance.
Right.
Most of the meetings we're dealing with, while not convenient, we would have a second chance.
Right. Okay. I guess my question is, I also know you as an expert on audio. Are those boxes up to the task?
For a conference room, a huddle space, a small boardroom, yes. Would I put it in an auditorium? No way in hell.
Okay, great. I kind of wanted to know if there was a level for that.
No,
because I've seen several companies do it, and I look at, for instance, I look at the Harman box, and I'm like, okay, that's great. I'm familiar with the AMX control system that it's in and all that. But I really want to go to them and say, are you putting an amplifier in this as good as you would sell me as a separate unit?
Yep.
So,
it's really it's a tool, and using the right tool for the job.
Okay, I got it. Steve, I'll see you on the show floor.
All right, my pleasure.
I like to follow Steve around and take a look at what he likes. Anyway, Steve, thanks for being with us.
My pleasure. Thank you.